Packers under the bright lights tonight against the Washington Commanders. Vikings take center stage Sunday night when they host the Falcons. Bears-Lions, noon Chicago time, right here on Fox 32. Bears had a walkthrough yesterday, practice today. Let's bring in Cassie Carlson, who was there. She joins us from Hallis Hall. Cassie, great to see you. Tell me, what was the big story from today's workout and the press conferences?
Yeah, well, just looking at the injury report from the practice, you're looking at some of these players and their availability for a big game come Sunday in Detroit. And most concerning, I would say now, is that Grady Jarrett did not practice for a second straight day dealing with the knee injury, and Kyler Gordon still has not practiced this week with a hamstring injury. But then you look at the flip side, and we talked to Jaylon Johnson today, who said he anticipates he is going to go in Sunday's game. So he will make his season debut against the Detroit Lions. He's always showed up in Detroit. I think one of his best games came his rookie season in Detroit. He said he doesn't really look past that far, but he said he always shows up big time, especially when it comes to those division games. So it's going to be fun to see Jaylon Johnson back in this secondary, especially when you're looking at a Detroit team that you know wants to bounce back, because this is a team that was a top 5 scoring offense the last 3 years with Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator, put up just 13 points against Lions in their week 1 game last week. And everyone's talking about how you just can't look into that too much because of the history and because of the weapons that they really have returning on this Detroit offense. They're all the same outside of the interior of the offensive line. So I think it's going to be a fun one, especially to see Jaylon Johnson up against someone like Jameson Williams, who gets his big extension today. I think Kyler Gordon is a huge concern, though. You're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown playing that slot receiver role, and if you don't have your nickelback, their starting nickelback ready to go, I think that could cause some more troubles, especially when you're just looking at depth of the defense. And then an update on TJ Edwards. He's limited for a second straight day with a hamstring injury. So I think Jaylon Johnson being ready to go, making his season debut, is definitely the headline after today's practice.
Absolutely. That's great news. I'm a little worried about Grady Jarrett. If Grady Jarrett can't go on Sunday, who would you expect to replace Grady Jarrett?
I mean, probably Andrew Billings, because that's kind of been one of the surprising things with just the rotation of that defensive line and seeing Billings playing with the twos for the most part. So I would imagine he would go. But I think you're going to have Jervon Dexter step up big time in this role and be able to stop the run, because every time you talk to anyone about this Lions offense, it's all about their run game. And although they only rushed for 46 yards with the combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery a week ago, they know that they're going to still want to establish the run, just like the Bears do come Sunday in Detroit, back at their home field advantage that they have there at Ford Field. So Dennis Allen spoke today about it. He said you're not looking too much into what they did week 1 in the run game. He said they want to play bully ball, so they're going to have to stop that run first, and then Jared Goff gets going with the play action passing game and taking some deep shots down the field. So yeah, I think Grady Jarrett not practicing, he was in the locker room, so I think that's an interesting one to watch. A lot of times you're like, does he get a veteran day off entering year 11? But it seems to be something more to that. So we don't hear from Ben Johnson until tomorrow again, so he'll obviously be answering some questions about that. But yeah, Grady Jarrett not being on the field would be a huge loss for this team if he's not able to go on Sunday.
I'm a big Bill Andrew Billings fan, especially with the way this team's run defense shined back in 2023 with a healthy Andrew Billings, and really for the first 5-6 games last year as well, until Billings got hurt. Let me ask you, after listening to Ben Johnson the last 2 days, the coordinators today, talking to some of the players in the locker room, do you think the Bears believe that this Lions team is as good as the one that captured the NFC North the past 2 years?
Yeah, I think everyone is saying we're not going to look too much into week 1, and maybe no one should look too much into week 1 of maybe what the Bears did either, right? It's the unknowns that are going into a season. And I think a good example of this, I don't know if you listened to the Amon-Ra brothers, the St. Brown brothers podcast at all, but even Amon-Ra St. Brown, who played for Ben Johnson when he was his offensive coordinator, kind of backed him. And what happened Monday night against the Vikings, he's like, it's just week 1. And he said back when Ben Johnson took over calling plays and as offensive coordinator in 2022, he said we were by no means a finished product week 1. And just looking back at how that season started for the Lions, they went 1-6 to start the season and then finished 9-8 on the year. So I think there's a ton of growth that can happen over time. And just based off of how Declan Doyle talked about Caleb Williams and how he has adjusted and what he's been doing to turn things around this week on a short week after some of the inaccuracy issues that he had Monday night, it seems to be taking steps forward. And I think it just goes back to the conversation that we really probably had before this season started. And Lou, I know you echoed the same sentiment that a lot of people have said, is you just got to be patient with this team, especially the Bears. And I think the same is for the Lions, because they do have 2 new coordinators, both on offense, both on defense, but they do have majority of the same weapons. I think the bigger thing that, just listening to all the Detroit media and what they're saying, is the biggest thing that they're missing is Frank Ragnow, their center who retired, and just the impact of having the best center in the league retire just before training camp start, and that maybe the Lions are feeling the effects of that now because they have a totally new interior line. So similar kind of with what we saw from the Bears and their new offensive line, clearly still working out some kinks. I think the Lions might be dealing with the same thing.
All right, I want to talk about the Bears offensive line. 4 false starts Monday night. Also they needed to take a timeout and 1 point in the game before they were penalized for blowing the play clock. You won't be able to hear yourself think, and either will Ben Johnson or the offensive line Sunday in that madhouse called Ford Field. How's this Bears offensive line going to handle that crowd noise?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a silent cadence. And Caleb Williams spoke yesterday a little bit later than he was expected to. And he said that's something that he's been working on since last year. And it's definitely something they're going to be working on this week. Now, Rome Odunze said silent cadence can be a little bit tricky, except really for a wide receiver. He said all you have to do is wait and watch when that ball is snapped. But that's something that they're going to have to implement. Ford Field, as you mentioned, it's similar to US Bank Stadium, where it is so loud inside of there. And if you think that the narrative going into this game is going to be in Detroit, it's definitely that the Lions want to spoil Ben Johnson's return to Detroit, because Lions fans are still very salty that Ben Johnson left and came to a division rival here in Chicago. That place is going to be extremely loud, and all those players know it, and it's something that they're going to have to work on this week. And just in regards to the cadence in general, Caleb Williams said he needs to be louder in the huddle and then at the line of scrimmage when he gets that call out, to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And it's unfortunately just a reoccurring theme that we saw throughout training camp that's now showing up in games. You can't have 4 false start penalties in the first half alone, which is what they had Monday night. And so I think that's going to be something where everyone needs to step it up. And Caleb Williams kind of took the onus a little bit, saying he just needs to be more clear, not only with his cadence, but with the play calls as well.
All right. He also said yesterday when he met with the media that he needs to keep trusting and believing in his head coach, Ben Johnson, and also his teammates. Accuracy was a problem for Caleb Williams last year. He was the least accurate passer in the NFL in week 1. You are Miss Positive. Tell me why it's going to get better with Caleb Williams.
Well, I think as the season goes on, Ben Johnson is going to call and scheme up plays that are going to put Caleb Williams and his receivers in the best position possible to get open. I think that's the number one thing. Now, I think a lot of people are looking at that one play in the fourth quarter where Caleb Williams totally missed on DJ Moore, who was running down the sideline. And Declan Doyle talked about that today, saying, yes, that's something that they just need to work on the communication. But essentially, DJ Moore cut away from the defender and he threw his hand up, and that's what you're supposed to do early on in your route if that happens, and Caleb Williams just didn't see it. And so DJ Moore spoke about it today, saying, you know, a lot of that narrative dates back to last year. He said a lot of it dated back to probably training camp. He said training camp is training camp. They're going to get it figured out. And he said what you didn't see is him and Caleb Williams working after practice to get on the same page. So I think that's something that it wasn't just DJ Moore, it was Rome Odunze as well. Caleb Williams seems to have the most rapport still with Olamide Zaccheaus, but you just can't miss that many balls, especially when you're coming from behind and you have your receivers open. You got to find a way to just, it's like the unspoken words that you look at the best who can do it, and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, where they're like so together and know exactly what the telepathy they want to do. They're able to ad-lib and get the ball to them.
All right, it's going to take time. Let me give you a wrap up here. Bears had 20 rushes against Minnesota. And here's a little bit of a preview of what I'm going to talk about with you on Bears Blitz Friday. In my opinion, the Bears need to run the football more at Detroit. They need to get ahead in this game, and they need to control the clock because they need to take the crowd out of it. Do you agree?
I agree, and I think Ben Johnson agrees as well, because he said it pretty plain and simple yesterday. I need to call more run plays. And so whether that's giving the ball to DeAndre Swift more, Declan Doyle complimented how he played in the second half and specifically in the third quarter, or I think it's going to be Kyle Monungai getting the ball a little bit more, because I think he was on the field for, I want to say, 9 snaps, and he didn't have any rushes, just had 1 catch for 11 yards. That's a weapon that they can continue to use, and it was good to see Jaylon Johnson back at practice today. That running back room was fairly thin heading into week 1, and although the Bears downplayed just how it was going to be and they wouldn't have enough depth at that position, I think that's important to note that they could have Jaylon Johnson back for this game, and I would expect Kyle Monungai to get some more carries as well.
All right, that's great news. Cassie, thanks as always for the time, and I will see you tomorrow on Bears Blitz, okay?
See you, Lou.